You and I first talked when you broke the news that Governor Tim Walz wasn't running for a third term. And I'm curious what the political impact of all of this news is. Because first, I want to talk about the governor's race, because we saw a Republican candidate just yesterday drop out, attorney Chris Mantle. What do you make of that?
Look, he was a pretty straight shooter. He's a successful lawyer here. He ran as a Republican. He was a little bit of a disruptor in that race, but he assessed the situation and he assessed the way in which federal agents, ICE, the White House were handling the situation in Minnesota. He said they're violating people's rights. They're violating police officers' rights. They're violating citizens' rights. And he said, I can't stand for that. And if that means going through a whole campaign where I suddenly, because I'm running on the Republican side, have to defend the president or be MAGA, I just can't do that. So he dropped his campaign. The other side is that Amy Klobuchar, a U.S. senator from here, who's expected to run for Walz in Walz's place, has had to delay the launch of her campaign twice now because of these killings. The interesting thing, just for your viewers, which I think Forbes viewers will appreciate, is she co-chaired the inauguration last year. So she got to work with Susie Wiles, the Trump family, on the inauguration. There's always two congressional co-chairs. She was one of them. She had those relationships and she leaned in on them in the last few days to really try to bring this forward. And apparently she did. Finally, I would just say the other key issues for the state, I know, are ensuring that all of the evidence in the good killing and in the pretty killing is preserved so there can be a state-led investigation or a joint-led investigation between state and federal officers. I think that's where the line is. We need to investigate this as a state to know whether or not we can charge these officers locally.
And I know that even in national polls, some Republicans feel queasy. Right now, that was the word a pollster told me about ICE's actions. And Minneapolis, that's where it's all happening. So if I'm a Republican running for any office in Minnesota right now, what am I thinking?
I think it depends on what part of the state you live in. If you live in the suburbs, you're concerned about this. I think you saw suburban legislators, state senators here come out over the weekend and say, we need a pause. We need a different way forward, appealing to the president for that. I think if you're in a rural, mostly red district, this is not on the minds, but this is statewide. So I had on my radio show last week, a state rep from Wilmer, which is a very successful farming and food community west of Twin Cities, about 2 hours. In Wilmer, they have these same issues with ICE agents. Kids aren't going to school, parents aren't going to work, ethnic restaurants, Hispanic, Somali grocery store closed. Wilmer has been held out as a national model of making immigration work, and it has impacted these rural counties. So I know that out there you have a Republican state rep, safe Republican district, saying this is not good for our town. And I think there'll be more and more of that as people feel comfortable that there's a way out.